Ballerina cappuccina? No, no, no. Espressona signora.
Once Espressona Senora studied at an old coffee academy, a place where coffee flowed instead of blood, and exams were passed not with knowledge, but with endurance. She never smiled. She knew that a smile dissolves strength, like sugar in a cup. Her hair carried the scent of bitter Arabica, and her eyes reflected the darkness of sleepless nights when coffee no longer kept you awake, but only deepened your thoughts. No one ever noticed that her cup was always full, though no one had ever seen her drink. They say that one Halloween, Espressona brewed a drink where water was replaced with time. And ever since, anyone who dares to taste her coffee freezes in a single moment. Hot, bitter, endless. Now she wanders the empty halls of her academy, with a cup for a head, searching for the perfect bean, the one that will make the taste of eternity flawless.
Ballerina cappuccina.
Once, Ballerina Cappuccina danced at weddings, bringing joy and the aroma of fresh coffee to every celebration. Her delicate dress twirled to the rhythm of the piano, and her movements reflected in the guests' cups, graceful, like the swirls on milk foam. She believed that one day she would dance for herself, at her own celebration of love. But that day never came. The groom didn't arrive. Instead of rings, only wilted rose petals and a cup of cold coffee remained on the white tablecloth. Her tears fell into the cup, and the foam froze into a marble pattern, shaped like a broken heart. That night, she disappeared. Years later, when the moon is full and the wind whispers through the cemetery trees, she returns. In her faded wedding gown, with a cup of cappuccino for a head, she dances across the old gravestones, and every step leaves behind a trace of coffee foam.
Blueberrini octopusini.
Once, Blueberrini Octopusini was just a sea actress in an underwater theater. The audience adored her for the grace of her tentacles and her enchanting songs that could make the currents change direction. But one stormy night, when lightning struck above the ocean, a giant wave swept away the stage, and with it, her entire life. They say she made a pact with the deep. In exchange for her voice, she gained the power of the abyss and returned, not as a performer, but as the ruler of the drowned. Now, Blueberrini lives in a coral labyrinth where seashells whisper the names of those who dared to forget her. Every Halloween, the sea rises higher than usual, and she emerges from the foam to gather new spectators. Her stage is now the silent ocean floor, and her applause is the echo of crashing waves. Those who hear her song never return, for the ones who become her audience remain in her eternal performance forever.
Cappuccino assassino!
Once, Cappuccino Assassino was just an ordinary barista in a small night cafe on the edge of the city. He took pride in his craft. He could draw hearts, flowers, even faces in the foam. But one Halloween night, a woman in a black veil came in and asked for a drink stronger than death. Smirking, he brewed a cappuccino from the darkest roast, added a pinch of cinnamon, and a single drop of his own blood. The woman drank it and vanished. By morning, the entire city awoke shrouded in fog, thick and bitter as coffee. Since that night, Cappuccino Assassino roams the streets, slipping into people's dreams through the scent of morning coffee. He seeps into homes with the aroma of freshly ground beans, and if you hear the soft hiss of steam in the silence, know this: he's already brewing his final cup.
Is corn sahur?
Oh, once, corn Sahur was just an ordinary farmer, growing sweet corn on the outskirts of a small town. His fields glowed gold under the sun, and everyone said his corn was the sweetest they'd ever tasted. But one autumn, the soil beneath his crops began to rot, and the kernels turned dark, whispering when the wind passed through them. At night, Sahur started hearing children's voices calling his name from the fields. On the night before Halloween, he went out to the cornfield and never came back. The next morning, where his barn once stood, there was only a single red balloon with an ear of corn printed on it. Since then, on foggy nights, people have seen a clown with a face made of golden kernels wandering the outskirts. His eyes shine like drops of oil, and his grin is wide and sticky like caramel. He invites children to a corn festival, promising candy and laughter, but those who follow him into the field are never seen again. Only the soft rustle of corn and a lonely red balloon swaying in the wind remain. A silent reminder of corn sahur, the smiling horror that lives between the stalks.
Frigo camelo buffo fardello?
Once, Frigo Camelo was just an ordinary caravan camel, carrying sweet soda across the endless desert. He loved his journey, the glowing sunrises, the fizzing sound of bubbles, the cool taste of lemonade that saved travelers from the scorching heat. But one day the caravan was caught in a storm. The sun vanished behind a wall of sand, and the cargo, hundreds of bottles, burst, spilling golden foam that soaked into the dunes. Since that night, Frigo Camelo was never seen again. They say a cold wind swept across the desert, and from it, something else was born. The desert dementor, a creature that doesn't steal joy, but the very taste of life. His breath is icy mist, smelling faintly of cola and despair. On moonlit nights, he glides through abandoned caravan trails, cloaked in shadows. In his hand is a wand carved from the bones of those who never finished their last drink. He seeks out the cheerful, the carefree, the ones who laugh too loudly, to drain it all away forever. Job, sahur. Every night, on the eve of Halloween, when the streetlights flicker and the pumpkins smile a little too wide, he appears. Job sahur. Small, childlike, but with a skull-painted face and the word J-O-B burned into his forehead. No one knows where he comes from, only the dull sound of his bat tapping against the asphalt, counting down someone's time. Once, Job was just an ordinary boy who dreamed too hard about the perfect job. He wanted recognition, money, success, and on the scariest night of the year, he made a deal to get it. Now his job is to take away other people's dreams. He visits those who fall asleep that night wishing to change their lives, quietly erasing their plans like dust from an old resume. Since then, rumors have spread through the city streets. If you hear a soft knock of a bat outside your window, don't look out. That's Job Sahur, checking who's still awake, ready to steal your ambition and add it to his endless portfolio of deals. At dawn, he vanishes, melting into the fog and glowing hiring now signs. Only the pumpkins keep smiling, a little wider than they should. Once he was just an ordinary chair in an old bank, standing quietly in the corner where clients left their money, dreams, and worries. But on Halloween night, the bank emptied forever. Lightning struck the dome, and everyone inside vanished into thin air. Only one object survived. The chair, soaked with the shadow of the man who had spent his life guarding gold and counting other people's fates through the numbers on their bills. Now he is known as Karkur, a living object, the guardian of all that's hoarded and forgotten. His wooden body has taken on human form and his face is frozen in a mask of calm. He never moves until someone sits on him. The moment they do, silence turns into a whisper. He reads a person's worth, not in dollars, but in deeds. Every sin becomes a bill, every lie another brick in the wall of money rising behind him. La! Esok sekola! He was once just a classroom puppet, used to scare kids who skipped school. But one stormy night, lightning struck the school and electricity brought him to life. Since then, he's become a teacher, not of subjects, but of punishment. He hunts those who skip life, the lazy, the liars, the ones who waste their time, and he makes them learn. Only in his lessons, there are no breaks. Didn't do your homework? Then let's play in his classroom. There are no windows. Instead of a bell, a dripping faucet. On the desks lie blades, and on the chalkboard, written in white chalk, to leave, solve the problem. If you make a mistake, La Esok Sekola raises his wooden finger, smirks, and whispers, "Wrong, we'll repeat it tomorrow." But tomorrow never comes, because for him, it's always Halloween. Scimpanzini Bananini! Once, Scimpanzini Bananini was the star of the circus. He could juggle, perform tricks, and throw bananas into the crowd. Everyone laughed, everyone cheered, but no one saw what happened behind the curtain, the cage, the whip, the forced smiles when he was sick or tired. One Halloween night, lightning struck the circus tent. The lights went out. The audience froze, and when they came back on, Scimpanzini's cage was empty. All that remained on the stage was a single banana with a smile carved into its peel. Sigma, Sigma boy, Sigma boy, Sigma boy. They say that in the cold waters of the Southern Ocean lived a penguin chef named Sigma Boy. He dreamed of creating the perfect sushi roll made out of himself, his life, his coldness, and his madness. One Halloween night, he found an abandoned restaurant at the foot of an iceberg. There, among moldy wasabi and dried ginger, stood an old refrigerator with a sign that read, "Do not open under the full moon." Of course, Sigma Boy opened it. From inside burst a chill so ancient that even darkness froze in place. A swirl of purple and green smoke wrapped around him, and strands of green seaweed sprouted from his feathers, like the hair of a madman. Thus he became Sigma Boy, the chef of the eternal kitchen, where every ingredient is someone's soul. Spioniro Golubiro. Once, Spioniro Golubiro was just an ordinary city pigeon, bold, clever, and everywhere at once. He knew every balcony, every shadow, every crumb on the square. But one night he was noticed, not by people, but by those who watched from the other side of the sky. After that, Golubiro vanished. Years passed, until one Halloween night he returned. But not as a bird. His feathers had darkened, his body was wrapped in ancient linen, and his eyes reflected the cold flash of forgotten cameras. He became the mummy spy, an eternal observer of the living. Each midnight he rises from his crypt to take pictures, not of landscapes, but of shadows. His camera clicks without film, yet the photos appear in dusty, abandoned shop windows across town. Those who find their image in one never see the sunrise.
I don't think you can click on the next video before time runs out.